And then I am going to welcome our favorite, Nicole. Happy Monday. Thanks for being here again, Nicole.
Happy Monday, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back, and I'm so glad to see some familiar and some new faces. Grace, it's good to see you. I do know we've talked about the community media, so it's good to see you. Roberta and Karen, good to see you again. And Margarita, good to see you today. I definitely want to give you just 1 minute to put in the chat your industry affiliation and what a goal for you is today. Today's topic is sustainability. Specifically, we are talking about how to build and strengthen your board structure, how to attract high capacity board members, and how to conduct board retreats and board development activities. So if you could just put in the chat your affiliation and what you hope to get out of today's session, it would be very helpful, because Elizabeth and I are using some of this as a follow-up, my agenda for our September 12th. Where do we go from here? How do we tie together all of the goals from the first session, which was expert fundraising, to expert grant writing, to sustainability for board members? How do we tie that together into an action plan? So if you can just take a moment, it's 9:06. I'll unmute again at 9:07, and then I have another activity for us. And thank you, Margarita, for your email address. If anyone can put in their website, that's great. Can you also put your website? That's great.
You're welcome.
Great. All right. Okay, there's Grace and stv.org. Very good. So now let's take just 1 minute. And as you know, we start each session with a success visualization. And visualizations activate the creative centers of your brain, so that you allow yourself to think differently about common problems. Visualization of success helps do that. It also helps you stay focused, and also be flexible in how you attract or attach yourself to what success looks like for your organization. So for today's success visualization, I would just like you to take a minute and visualize in your mind what a successful board looks like and what they would be doing. So fast forward 30 years to 2052, your organization is still active, still in business. What would it look like in 30 years? And what would the board members be doing? Flash forward, like I said, fast forward 30 years, what would the board look like and what would they be doing? So we'll take 1 minute, it's 9:08, 9:09 will come back, and I want to hear from each of you, if I can, 2 or 3 of you, what that looks like. Thirty more seconds. All right. So I'm going to ask for a volunteer. If anyone would like to volunteer, or I'll volunteer you. But I don't mind going first. So when I fast forward 30 years, I see the board vibrant and diverse with a variety of ages. I actually saw teenagers to seniors, and what they would be doing is advocacy. I saw in my mind's eye board members shaking hands with people and, presenting about the Chamber of Commerce that I'm a member of. Anyone want to share?
I can do it.
Margarita, share with us what you saw, and then we'll go to, was that Roberta?
Yeah.
Okay, so Margarita and then Roberta, what did you visualize?
Kind of the same that you. For me, I see a very diverse board in terms of intergenerational to bring all the voices from the communities and all the different, race and genders, everything. I would like my organization just to showcase that, to bring program, to help us to define program that is well connected to the community. And obviously, our board really raising money and working with our sustainability for the long-term sustainability.
Very nice. Very nice. Intergenerationality, designing new programs, raising money, and building long-term sustainability. That's a lot for 1 minute. That's good. See how great that is? Just 1 minute. Roberta, share with us your success visualization for the board.
So I can't help thinking of success for us as not being there anymore, as not being needed anymore, because all venues have incorporated this in their websites and in their information for all people. So beyond that is really, that is, how I see our goal. But beyond that, I guess I see our board as being, as our whole organization, perhaps becoming more activist in getting that to happen. And then the board, just being much more out there and helping this to happen, but being totally engaged in fundraising, sponsorships, partnerships to help people be more aware that this information needs to be out there for everybody.
And I think Roberta's visualization for many of us is a reality, is when we will no longer be needed, right? When what we do has been accepted as the normal way of doing things. And that's a very lofty goal. And that's actually acceptable. I'm a member of an organization that I do hope will no longer have to be. I'm a member of a civil rights organization bringing equality to women, men, regardless of race, gender. I'm hoping that one day what we do, we won't have to, that it'll be a part of the fabric of our culture. So that is acceptable. Thank you, Roberta. Anyone else want to share when they visualize success 30 years from now? What does your board look like and what would they be doing in your mind's eye? Anybody want to share? No problem, no problem. I want to just give you an opportunity to think about, and I'm just going to share this very quickly, and we're going to come back to this. I need to share this with Elizabeth to send out to all of you, but this is a board circle, and I was given something like this many, many years ago, and I want to continue to use it because I think it's a really good visualization for how and where we all lie on the spectrum. So when we talk about where board members should come from, how do we engage them? How do we grow and develop? We have to look at the circle of experience and the circle of connection. And the outer layer is association. Who are we associated with in our organization and individually? Who are the folks that we're around? Just associated with. Could be social, could be religious, could be cultural, but who are we around on a regular basis? And then affiliation. Who do we share common belief with? That could be a fraternal organization, a religious organization, a business or art membership organization. Are we members of an organization that does volunteer work very similarly to the organization we're talking about today? Do I belong to a community that is connected to what I'm doing right now? And then third, your circle of influence. This is more personal. Who in my circle, my personal circle, would I like to invite to be a part of what we're doing? Whether it's supporting events, connecting for sponsorship, and each of these can be a list. So what I do when I do a board retreat about sustainability, we spend about 20 minutes listing these 4 categories. Who am I associated with? And I say, just think about 1 week. Who are you around? You would be surprised at the number of people you're associated with, from coworkers to neighbors to family members. Who am I affiliated with? Well, I'm a member of a spiritual, religious organization. I'm a member of a sorority. My sorority is international. I'm also a member of a ballroom society. I've been dancing for 14 years. I have asked folks that I dance with to support my events, and they do. Who is in my circle? What family, friends, associates would I like to invite into what I'm doing with this organization? And then the committed connections. Now, those are my closest, dearest friends and loved ones, the folks that I lean on for support. This is family, this is friends that are family, whoever you might be close to. So what I tell and share with board members or anybody when we're talking about fundraising, I say, if you get 2 people from each of these categories, you've already sold 8 tickets to an event. So any event, whenever I'm associated with something, I buy a table because I know I'm going to sell 10 tickets. If I get some folks that I'm associated with, folks that I'm affiliated with, circle of influence, committed connection. So we'll go back to this in about 15 minutes, but I wanted your mind to start thinking around sustainability is about diversity of access. So looking at attracting folks from different levels of experience instead of always tapping the same source. This helps you diversify your population, and diversity, as we all know, in all of its forms, has been proven to enhance overall success and effectiveness. Any questions about that before we launch into today's discussion? I wanted to put that out there. Any questions about that? I just saw the chat. Yeah, that's the dream, Roberta, to no longer be necessary. Yes, I agree. I agree. I like that. I like that. So let me just share here. Okay. So today's part 3, sustainability, is all about attracting, training, and galvanizing board members. Board members are going to be what they call your trusted advisors. That is what a board of directors is. They are your trusted advisor. They are your active activists, right? They're out there, they're ringing the bell. They're sounding the alarm on what it is that our mission is. So we want to talk about how to attract board members, which we kind of went over. We're going to have 2 activities. One is going to be about strengthening board structure. Another one is about board retreats and board development activities. I'm often surprised when I go into an organization and find out, that the board hasn't been surveyed in 10 years, 5 years, that there's been no activity to find out from board members what they think, except in the meetings. So we're going to talk about some very low cost, no cost ways to get insight from your board to help inform the future. So we did our success visualization. You've introduced yourselves. We're going to talk about assessing and then expectations for the board, position descriptions, training and equipping, development, and then we'll do a quick activity around 10. We're going to talk about board retreats and board structure, and then I have an activity to kind of solidify those learning outcomes. So assessing, how many of you provide an assessment before you go out and recruit board members? Do you complete an assessment of some sort a form or a document of the things that you would like to see on your board as far as skill mix. Just put it in the chat if you do, because I'm very curious. If you complete a form that kind of gives you some idea of what you're looking for. And then expectations. What are the expectations of the board? Do you do any of that? Let me see if anyone answered here. So when we talk about assessment, do you take a moment every year, every 6 months to write out what the board makeup is? Do you assess it? How many people, age categories, race, gender, ability, what they bring to the table, doctors, lawyers, do you have a matrix, anything like that? And then do you have any expectations? Do you have some sort of job description for them? Anybody? So a few people said no. And that's common. I want you to know you're in very close companionship with most folks. Most folks don't have an assessment tool. So if you want to reverse this, if you have not done an assessment on your own first before you attract board members, you can assess the board members you have. You want to get a clear idea of how your board interprets the mission and their goal. One of the things I'm doing right now is I was dispatched to do 3 small group visioning sessions where we broke the group up into 3 groups of 6 and have 35-minute open air discussions about where do you see this organization going? What do we do? What do you think we do? And where is this organization going? Very eye-opening. A lot of common themes, but also some themes that were not common, things that were not expected. And the executive director was kind of surprised at some of the things that they saw in some of the summary and results. I have like 3 more to go, but we started with 2. So how can you, or how can we get an idea of how the board interprets your mission? A survey is a low cost, no cost option. I love SurveyMonkey. I highly recommend surveying your board and your staff on a regular interval, every 3 months, every 4 months, and make it short and simple. 5 questions max. 5 questions. How do you feel about our mission? Is it accurate to what we're doing on a scale of 1 to 5? What do you think about our fundraising goals? Are we doing well? Could use improvement or need a total overhaul? Scale 1 to 3. Anything that you are struggling with from your board, I would recommend that you survey them about. If you're struggling with commitment, you can survey, design questions to find out why the board is resistant to doing certain things. If you're struggling with consistency, you can do a survey about board meetings, locations, time, follow-up. What is it that's not working? Why board members are not being consistent? And then financial commitment. Why are some board members giving and others aren't? Is it that it's too difficult to give? Is it not easy? Do they feel like they can't afford it? Or that the organization doesn't need more money? Surveying the board will help you assess and get an idea of who you have on your board and what they think. Focus groups, highly recommend, and I recommend that you get an outsider to do it. I'm completing another free focus group training offered by a nonprofit. It's online, it's a full day. I do it every 5 years and get a certificate because I think it is critical to know how to formulate focus group questions and be able to facilitate open discussion. So focus groups with the board twice a year, excellent. Get them out of their mindset, bring in someone totally new that they don't know, help germinate some discussion, encourage, catalyze discussion, thinking outside of the box. Surveys and board focus groups, I will tell you, there is an art to designing questions that will elicit the type of open discussion that you're looking for. So you don't want the questions to be too specific or anything that someone can answer in a 1-word answer, yes or no, You know, you want someone to be, you want to ask questions that beg for elaboration. And then quarterly reviews or check-ins. If you're the president of the board or an executive director, you should be calling on board members individually at least once a year, if not 4 times a year, every couple of months. Just call, say, hey, how are you? I'm just want to take 10, 15 minutes to just check in with you, see how things are going. Is there anything that we're not talking about in the meetings? Is there a direction that you see that we should be going? I remember working in an organization, it may have been the chamber I'm a member of now, right before the global financial crisis. And we had a member on our board that was in the real estate industry and had been slowly but surely helping us inform some workshops that we were doing. And we were like a little resistant, like, why are we talking about foreclosure? We're in a big, you know, we're not in a recession. Like in 2005, things were good. 2006, even better. Why are we doing anything on financial independence and you know, foreclosure? And she just kept saying, you know, everything is in cycles. There's always a recession after, you know, a great gain in the economy. You know, you got to be ready. And we did. You know, we led the pack in doing these workshops. But had I not reached out to her and talked to her, that particular board member would never have brought it up. Any questions about assessment and expectations? So someone said their board of directors is comprised of 15 representatives from incorporated villages on the North Shore, appointed by each mayor, and they are an acting board, but not very active. Yes, I'm familiar with these, what I call affiliation boards, like the Museum Association, like the Nonprofit Association of New York. These are organizations that people, they get put on something because of their role, which is a little different than them volunteering, to be quite honest. They're almost targeted to participate. So encouraging activity for an affiliated board, one of the effective ways that it has worked for me is allowing folks to present on what they do, or giving them an opportunity, a platform of sorts, to share. I call it learning exchanges. I don't like saying workshops anymore, because it's deeper than that. It's really a learning exchange. So if I ask Roberta to present next month, you know, on accessibility issues in New York State in the past 2 years, like, that's a learning exchange. That's just not a plain old workshop. This is someone I consider an expert. So affiliated boards, Grace, and others that want to know, how do you get these folks active that didn't necessarily ask to be affiliated with each other? One of the ways to do that is to encourage learning exchanges, even allowing them 5 minutes or 10 minutes at the next few meetings to talk about the unique characteristics of their community, because every village is different. Every nonprofit is different. And allowing people to do that will open them up and make them feel a little bit more needed and necessary. Any questions? That was a good one. That was a good one. Thank you, Grace. That was a good one. I appreciated that. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Okay, no more comments. Okay, any questions about assessment and expectation? So this is a little touchy, board position descriptions. You know, what do board members think they should be doing? Do they really know what their role is? Do they know what their role is? So if you could just put in the chat, what do board members think they should be doing? And a few folks put that in the chat. I can put something in there because I was an executive director for some time. Anybody familiar with that? Board members that think they should be managing day-to-day programs or influencing them? I'll give you a minute. Just put in the chat what you think. Oh, yes, they think they're just on the board to list their name. Okay. Give an opinion or advice. Some board members think that, they're there just for the purposes of adding credibility to the organization. I've had people say that to me when I've gone out and helped organizations with recruitment, because I actually train people on how to go out and recruit a board member, because it is a sales pitch. If anybody wants to know how to close a deal, you got to listen to Brian Tracy. He is like my guy when it comes to sales. I've been listening to Brian Tracy for 20 years. You want to know how to close a deal on anything? Listen to Brian Tracy on YouTube, how to close the deal. So recruiting board members is all about sales. It's about honing in on the need, making sure what you offer satisfies that need, and then getting the person to commit. So a lot of times people have said, oh, well, I'll serve on the board, but I don't have a lot of time. If you need my name, you can use that. So no, we need you attached to the name, right? Some folks think that their role is to provide guidance and to give opinions and to just advise. So the role of a board member is extremely diverse. It's not just one thing, it's a few things. It's, of course, advice and support and counsel. It's also stewardship and fiduciary duty, and to be an advocate. Board members are responsible for getting the word out about an organization. But it's very interesting to see what people think the board should be doing. Someone said the board doesn't think they should be doing much except saying they're a member. Yes, a lot of people stand on ceremony. They are on there to make the organization look good, but not necessarily involved in the day-to-day. That is correct. Board members' role is not to be involved in the day-to-day activity. That's your executive director's job. You entrust the ED to do the work, and they get an annual or biannual review. They report back each month, and the president or chair of the board, their sole role is to make sure that the meetings are effective so that decisions are made to move the organization forward. That would hopefully support what the executive director is proposing. So if you are not sure or clear on why board members are not as active as they should be, sometimes you will find that board members think that they should be doing something that they're not being asked to do. So I highly recommend that you, on a regular basis, again, do a calendar, annual and biannual. I call it board development. That's all I call it, twice a year. And the topics change. One session will be about sustainability. Another session will be about the changing role of boards. What is the role and responsibility of the board? How do we encourage board members to stay focused on what they're supposed to be doing? Training and development. Training and development. This is not something that comes naturally. Great board members are not born, they are made. Great board members are not born, they're made. You have to train and develop your board to be effective. It's like any other skill. Any other skill, public speaking, grant writing. These are things that you consistently have to invest in. So one of the ways is during the onboarding procedures, giving board members job descriptions with a full year calendar. Extremely helpful. One board, I'm on the Mather Hospital board. One of the first things they did, they gave me a beautiful packet. They invited me in, sat down for an hour with members of the executive committee to talk about the history of the organization. Fascinating. And the ways in which we are, providing needed services to the community in the future. But they also gave me a calendar hold for 24 months. So for the next 2 years, I have on my calendar every meeting, every event, and every deadline that is associated with our board's role with the hospital. Very simple, but powerful because it's there and I can prepare for it. Regular reviews and check-ins, there's that theme again. Reviewing with your board members on a daily basis, not as a critique, but as a discussion. Here's when you came on board. Here are the things that you've shared with us. Here are some things that we think we'd like to do. What are your thoughts, right? So regular reviews. We want to have regular reviews. And then we also want to survey board members regularly, again, on roles and responsibilities. I see there's some fundraising oversight and approving the budget. Yes, board members are responsible for participating. They're not responsible for overseeing fundraising activities. The executive director and the committee, the fundraising committee, will inform the executive director or the development director's activities and what they're doing. Board members are mainly to support the organization when it comes to fundraising. They either give or get. They give funding and resources, or they get them. They attract them. They refer them to the executive director or the development director to follow up. Those are the roles and responsibilities. They have a fiduciary and financial duty to oversee the budget, to make sure that all expenses are mission critical or associated with the mission. But the day-to-day is entrusted to staff. So a board member has to be real clear about why they are there, because it's not to run the organization, it's to support and guide it. There's a difference. The staff runs the organization. The board supports it and guides it. And that is something that board members need help, even me, to be trained and to develop to be a more effective board member. Just like folks don't know how to necessarily mentor. You know, folks think that their job when you talk about mentoring is to be critical or to critique someone or to teach them something. No, mentorship is all about relationship building. It's encouraging you to bring out the best of what you have to offer. And if you've identified weak areas, how do you get strength in those areas, right? So board members are not born, they're made. And I can often tell by the effectiveness of a board, I can usually correlate that to how much development and training they've had. If the board members have had zero training and development, then they're often disconnected, disengaged, a little lackluster in their passion and commitment. Good people, just not really excited anymore.
Because I'm trying to find a gas station.
So it's something for you to consider and to think about as you're moving forward, is how many opportunities do I provide for board members to be trained and developed? What opportunities do I provide? And there are many, and they are low cost or no cost. I think most of you know this already. When a board member is onboarded, here's just a short list of some of the things that they should receive right in their hand. Bylaws, updated bylaws. I'm shocked by how many people in nonprofit world think that they shouldn't give out their bylaws. Anybody on your board should have a copy. Your bylaws should be available. It's not a secret. It's on file with New York State. It's publicly available. Make it easy. Your annual report, you should produce an annual report every year. What did you accomplish? What did you do? It is absolutely a biased product. I will say that. I say that the annual report is all about how great we are and how great we've done. And the deficiencies are often reported in the most positive of terms so that you can attract support. And then minutes of past meetings, I would say for the past year or so. Your bylaws, your annual report, I would put them all in the cloud. I am all about Dropbox and all these other, I like Monday.com. Anything that you can do in the cloud that's of no cost to you, do it. And then you just give the board members a link, a secured link. A calendar of the year that includes meetings, events, the fundraising plan. They should know, the board members should know how much we plan to raise for the year and how we plan to do it. And of course, roles and responsibilities, excuse me. Your org chart, which shows chain of command and who the board is accountable to. The board is accountable to the membership. That's what the board is accountable to, the membership. But showing in black and white an org chart is very important. Board members should know what the staff lines of communication are and what the board committee structure is. Who do board committees report to? There should be at least 4 or 5 standing committees. And these committees meet outside of regular meeting hours, the full meeting hours. They meet on their own and they report back to the full body. Because the board meetings can't be to actually make decisions and do everything all at once. It's to be appraised, updated, and then to move the organization forward either through vote or consensus. But that comes from the committee. That comes from the committee. And then, of course, the code of conduct. Board members have to be very careful about how they interact with staff and how staff perceives the chain of command when it comes to the board. Everything should be filtered through the chair. More than likely at a board meeting through report. Unless you have some familiarity and you can be, if you have some interpersonal, it's okay to talk here and there, but the official chain of command is through your committee, the board, the working groups, the working committees report up to the chair, and the chair chairs a regular board meeting where everything is reported on, and the executive director and whatever staff member, development director is kept appraised. When I was an executive director, I met with every working group, every working or standing committee every month. I would sit in on a meeting, at least for some portion of it if necessary. And then they would send reports to me like the 15th of every month. And I would use that to develop my executive director's report. Any questions about when a board member is onboarded? Any questions, concerns, ideas? So we're getting ready to go into our activity. All right, so let's talk about the difference between equipping and training. So we know that there's a dual role, there's a dual function when we are looking to enhance the effectiveness of our board members. And two of the main ways I said was training and development. I broke it down even more and said equipping and training and developing. So it's like a trifecta. It's like a triumvirate approach. So board development, you could break it down into three categories: equipping them, training them, developing them. And if you follow this, it becomes kind of easy because you've got these three buckets. And when something comes to you, you can put it in that bucket. Like you have 3 files on your computer, and when something fits in one category, you put it in there. Say, okay, this is what I'm going to use for the biannual survey. Okay, this is what I'm going to do to help them when we do a workshop or a learning exchange. This is what I want to help them with. So equipping is really about giving them and enhancing their knowledge by giving them information. So that's articles, reports, surveys. One second here. Hold on. So equipping is about enhancing the knowledge base by giving information. These are articles in the newspaper or publications. Like I'm on a board, I'm a member of the ethics committee, right? Every month I get a Dropbox folder of 2 to 3 academic journal articles about ethics in this particular field. Riveting. And I read it and I come more informed to the committee meeting. Any reports that are produced within the organization are there. If you're a housing organization, do you produce an op-ed piece, or do you produce a report or something that you want to present at a conference? If you ever, anyone in your organization is reporting out at a conference or a workshop into the training module, they need to give a copy of that to the board chair. That should be shared with everybody. That's like number one. But let me go back to reports. So any reports that you produce as an organization, but then what about reports in the industry? Are there things in the industry that are changing? Of course there are. And sometimes board members, they see it, but they don't know much about it. You want to give them and equip them with the information to make them more informed. When you inform people, they become more activated. And then, of course, you always share the survey results with them. Any surveys that are done are anonymous, and you report back the results. Your board survey, your membership survey, your staff survey, you culminate it, you finish it up, you collate all the answers, put it on a one-pager. Let the board have at it. Give them 10 minutes in the board meeting to talk about it. And then training. Training is about skill building. So this is about giving your board members strength in their skill set in this field. So that means you got to give them learning exchanges, workshops, referring them to outside activities. I have now attended 2 or 3 virtual conferences in the field, just based on the recommendation from my board chairman. This is a good conference that's coming up. It's 2 days, it's online, you can jump on or off. Here's a newsletter that we are affiliated with. I'm going to send you the link to register and get your own notifications. Conferences, I always encourage, every year I would do, if I did, presentations, always try to enlist a board member to present with me. I always, and I did the heavy labor as executive director. I put the PowerPoint together and all that. We would practice, and it was really encouraging. Board members came away from that type of experience presenting at a conference about what we did. They came away with a renewed sense of commitment and urgency. Any questions about equipping and training? Any questions or comments about it?
There is a question in the chat. How long should a typical board meeting run?
Well, I can tell you I've sat on the board of a multi-million-dollar organization in the hundreds of millions, and the board meeting is 1 hour and 15 minutes. And that includes financials. The financial review, the executive director review, and a report out from 8 working groups, 1 hour and 15 minutes. Now, we usually go 2 hours because we eat, we socialize, we talk, we get time for that. And then we have a round robin. But the board meeting should not wear people out. Remember, a board meeting is to vote, to be updated, and to vote so that you can move the organization on action items. It's not to run, you don't decide on programmatic issues. You decide on high level commitment of resources, and usually when we did the payroll, we would have a warrant, what we call the warrant session every 2 weeks where we paid our bills. That one page, we'd do a 1-page summary of that month's expenses that went to the finance committee. And that was a part of their report out that, this month we paid $8,763 in salary, benefits, and programmatic support, no changes, no major changes. Or there was an increase of $1,800 because we purchased, a professional membership to Vimeo and Zoom in order to enhance our online capability. It's all about updating. So I've been in most meetings that I'm a part of are 1 hour or less. Very good question. And the board, let me ask, what does everyone think is the key to a successful board meeting? What is one of the main things to do to enhance a board meeting success? I'll let you put it in the chat. Attendance. You got it. A tight agenda. But yes, attendance is critical. We have to have people there. But the agenda, that was a good one. Yeah, somebody's got to be there. But after that is agenda, a good agenda, and sending information in advance. That's why I'm all about the cloud. It took me over a year to get used to this. A few years ago, I was, I'm a college level teacher, and my students were like, Professor Christian, you're doing too much. You need to get to the cloud. Like, you need to just send us a link and put all the files, everything you want us to read in it. Like, you're doing too much. You're posting everything on Blackboard. You're sending all these emails. All you gotta do is update this link. And I'm telling you, it is a game changer once you Get over your fear of relying on the cloud, because that was my thing. Oh no, I want everything in paper. I want it in my hand. What if it goes away? Well, I can back up the cloud on my computer. And I do. I have everything that I have in cloud-based portals is saved on my computer for my use. But I update it regularly, whether it's students, clients, it's all in the cloud. But an agenda is the key. So let's just take a quick 2-minute break, because I want to talk about development and then do an activity. I just want to get a little bit more water. So let's take a 2-minute break, a bio break, get some water, stretch, move, maybe use the restroom if you have to. And we'll be back at 9:53. That's about 3 minutes. Hope everyone enjoyed some of this bossa nova jazz that I have playing for you. Welcome back, everyone. There's a question in the chat. Good morning, Ernest, from how do you approach board members on taking responsibilities, because these are usually very busy people? I say it all goes back to the onboarding. And Susan said it right after our last activity before we broke, sending information in advance. As much as can be done in advance, the less put out people feel. If you give me a month to work on 2 or 3 tasks, that's great. But if you send me something on Monday and tell me you need it by Wednesday, that's gonna be a problem. That's gonna be a problem. Yes, question.
I mean, is there a point where you say to a board member, like, do you have time to do this? You know, I know you've onboarded them and you've made it clear to them in your onboarding that this isn't just a name. It's not we're not looking for names on our board. But you find that as time goes by, they're not involved at all. I mean, it goes almost beyond you know, being busy. They're busy for every meeting. They're not able to attend any event. I mean, what do you do at that point?
Well, there's two answers to Elizabeth and Ernest's question is extremely important, especially in today's virtual age. We're finding that board members are even less willing to commit time because everyone is so stretched so thin with their bandwidth. So there's two main answers to that. Number one is term limits. It's really important to stick to term limits and to encourage open elections. So that's number one. Some folks just have to, what we call age out. Some folks are just going to have to not be voted back in. And that's a board discussion and a board consideration. And I think the way that that's informed is by board assessments. So every year it's shared with the board how many meetings each person has attended, whether or not they've been active on a committee. Both of the boards that I serve on, one requires committee activity, the other doesn't. I will tell you the one that requires committee membership gets more out of me a lot of times because I have a committee meeting on top of my board meeting every month. So requiring committee membership may need a change to your bylaws. So when a board member comes on, they get a list and they have 30 days or 60 days to select a committee they'd like to serve on. And then you do an assessment every year. So that's strictly quantitative. How many meetings they've attended, how much committee membership, committee meetings they've attended, whether or not they have co-hosted, hosted, or participated in an event. So that means you either headlined it, you supported getting a headliner, or you were somehow affiliated with the event. Like there's a special event committee. Every committee member, every board member has to contribute an idea to the event committee. And then that event committee idea is followed up on. That's in my assessment. So December 30th of every year, there is a write-up done on Nicole Jean Christian. It's literally spit out from like a spreadsheet. And it says number of meetings attended, committee activity in a sentence or less. And then it says what I've contributed.
Karen has her hand up. And then I'll get to the questions in the chat, but Karen's had her hand up for a bit, so.
And Karen, right before you go, if we could put in the parking lot how to retire a board member, I'd like to follow up on that before we leave.
Okay.
Because there's an approach to retiring a board member.
We've got a lot of great committees on our board, and they do their committee work. They bring it back to a board meeting, but then what tends to happen is the board meeting turns into an extension of the committee meeting, which tends to drag out the length of our board meetings.
Yep.
How do you avoid that? How do you?
By training board members on how to conduct a committee meeting. So one of the things that I get enlisted to do is board development. And so every year they ask me to do a training on how to run a committee meeting, how to draft a report, and how to submit it. Because in the committee meeting, there has to be a topic, there have to be action items, and then those action items have 30 days to be concluded, and that report goes to the executive director or the chair. So that when we have a board meeting, the committee chair, say for special events, is supposed to be reporting back on what the committee developed and asking the board to vote on it.
Okay, what happens is the committee does all that, but then when it gets back to the board, the other board members who are not part of the committee then all of a sudden have a lot to add into it, and then all of a sudden it's being turned into, we're spending 20 minutes on our upcoming fundraising event and the rest of the board meeting gets squished.
I had it reversed. Excuse me, I thought Karen meant what happens when the committee comes to the board meeting wanting feedback from the board. Is the reverse. What happens when the committee report is read into the record and then the board members rehash the committee meeting? Then the chair must move towards a vote. So there's discussion, right? So the first thing that the chair would say is, what is the proposal? What is the action item that came out of this? And that's the key. Did the committee create an action item for the board, or is this just for update? Some things are for update and information. And I think at my board meeting, you get 3 minutes. 3 minutes is for update, 5 minutes is for vote. And there's a timekeeper. Karen, there's no other way to do it. And what Karen is talking about is a very common board affliction. So the committee does their job. They come to the board meeting, the committee chair presents, and then the board members want to rehash the committee. They have to be limited in time, and it has to move towards a vote. If there is no action required at that time, then they simply say, this is for information and update. You're free to come to the committee meeting or to email the committee chair more detail on your idea. But it's a very common affliction, especially when, like with fundraising, the special events committee will come and say, well, we came up with this idea for the year. And then the board members will say, well, no, this is not a really good idea. We don't have the money to do that right now. We did it last year and it didn't work. Well, this is for information and update. This is our suggestion. We can talk about the feasibility if you send us an update or come to our committee meeting. Now, let me say this. If the issue is of critical importance, meaning the time is against you, there's a situation that's brewing that has to be addressed because of whatever this committee is working on, then it has to be put on the board's agenda. And there has to still be an action. The committee has to recommend action. That's what the board is there to vote on action. If they want to contribute to idea development, they must do it through a committee. And I've seen people be pretty powerful people be encouraged to funnel their activity to the committee level in a board meeting. They will say, sir, ma'am, you've exceeded the time for question and answer. There's a motion before us to vote. If you have any more discussion, we'll have to take it up in next month's meeting. But I think updates are 3 minutes and votes are 5. That's how they do it. Is there a suggested number of board members? They should be odd. I would say no less than 5. I think 3 board members might be too little. If you can do 5, that's great. Anything over 17 gets unwieldy. You got to have a strong support staff. I'm on a board of 31, and there's 6 staff members. So there's a secretary to the chair. There is an executive director and a deputy executive director, and there's 2 administrators. And there's 31 of us. So as your board increases, the support has to increase. You can't have 17 people with 2 staff people. It should be in proportion to support.
And Nicole, Roberta had a couple of questions. She said, what is it you don't have? What do you do when you don't have new people to replace the current board members? And how does all of this work if you have an extremely small organization and board? And I think you just answered part of it, but.
Yeah. I always tell folks, make sure you know what your quorum is. I know for one of the nonprofit organizations I'm a member of, a quorum is 3. The executive director and two board members, because we're a small nonprofit. You know, we're not going to get all 7 people every month. I'm sorry to say it. So the quorum is 3. The executive director and 2 board members is kind of low. We're thinking about revisiting that in the bylaws this year and making it 4. Making it 3 board members in the ED. That's what we're thinking, but then the number's even. So we would have to do 4 and 1. So I think the quorum is critical. If you're a smaller organization, say there's only 10 of you, you got to have a quorum of at least 3 to do business. To actually take a vote, you got to have a quorum. So that would be my recommendation for how does this work if you have a small organization. First, deal with what is the quorum so that you can actually vote and do work. If you have committees, I would say if you have a small, organization, 2 working groups is fine. If there's 7 of you, 10 of you, you can make 2 committees work. But every board meeting can't be a discussion of what to do because you'll never get anywhere. So you have to get used to using committee structure. And it took some years for my smaller nonprofit that I'm a member of to get used to it. Now they can't do without it. And the committees there's only 3 or 4, and there's like 2 people on each. But the board meetings are really effective because people submit their reports a week before, and the board agenda is like according to what the reports are. So we go through the preliminaries, we boom, 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 get through our votes, and then we have a round robin. We got like 10 minutes at the end to just talk. Question about templates for surveys. Yeah, I recommend surveymonkey.com. It is free, up to 10 questions, and you can send it to up to 30 people. I have a professional Survey Monkey, you know, I have a professional Survey Monkey sign on because it's what I do for a living. I think I pay $7 a month.
Do you have suggestions on questions that should be asked, Nicole, or a resource that we can go to ask questions? And it's funny because you and I were talking just right before we started about sending out a feedback form just for this program. So I know how important what questions you're asking are, not just sending out the survey, but having the right questions. Do you have suggestions for that, or where we can find examples?
There's a really good book. I forgot the name of it. I got to look it up. Maybe I'll send it. It's Surveys for Boards. And I use it, and I just change some of the questions in there, but it's called Surveys for Boards. And it's like all these questions for different industries, but I change them according to what I need. Depending on what you're looking for, I tend to ask questions that are open-ended. How do you feel about our progress to date? What are some things that we need to improve on to bring in more resources? How and why do we have the membership issues that we do? So I always ask maybe 4 or 5 questions that are extremely open-ended. And you can ask pretty much anything. I would keep it to 3 or 4 questions, because anything more than that open-ended would take you forever to get to the answers. Oh, and Susan had a question. I misspoke. When I said ED, I meant to say chair. So the chair of the board can be a part of the quorum, not the ED. Excuse me.
And there's another question: to whom does the committee submit their reports a week ahead of time? The chair or the full board?
The chair. The committee reports goes to the president a week before the board meeting. And I have a template that I follow for committee meetings. I have a template that I follow for committee. It usually is, you know, an overview, and then the summary of the last committee meeting, and then the required action. So it has to be a vote. If it's no vote, then we get the 3 minutes for update and information. Real short. Yeah, the committee report is every month, and it goes to the chair or president. Whoever chairs the board meeting is who gets your committee reports. Let me just share this with you here. Hold on one moment. So when we talk about development, equip, train, and develop. So equip, we talked about, was information. Training was skill building. Development is relationship building. So that's mentoring, partnering up, connecting with other board members that certain board members can learn from. Non-fundraising activities and events for the board. It could be a tea, it could be a social, it could just be a celebration. And then focus groups and encourages active engagement. So focus groups in the sense that you find out what people are doing or what it is that they'd like to be doing, just an open, facilitated discussion. And you use that to create activities that are fun. Maybe it's mini golf, you know, doing mini golf and getting some food one afternoon just for board members. Maybe it's a social outing at the beach or going to a concert together. I thought that was a really creative idea. I went to a concert with board members. It was a lot of fun. We all sat together, we ate together. It was cool. And it really helped create relationships. So I'd like you to take a moment now. I'll give you 3 minutes, so 10, 12, to draft 2, maybe 3 questions on what you would like to include in a board focus group. What are 2 or 3 questions you'd like to ask? in a board focus group? You can put it in the chat. We'll take 2 minutes. Very nice. So who, yeah, what would motivate you to become more active? Do you think we're fulfilling our mission? Yeah, what are we doing right now? And what do you think about how we're fulfilling our mission? These are excellent questions. So there's 3 types of questions. I'll put this up. This is one of the organizations that does like free training. So there's engagement questions, exploration questions, and exit questions. I always try to do one of each. So an engagement questions is helping the person think broadly about the organization. It's like a softball question. What do you think? How do you think? What are we doing with our mission? Do you think we're fulfilling it, and why? Exploration questions are really about targeting to the meat of what you're trying to discover. So if the issue is fundraising, then you would say something like, what would encourage you to increase your giving by 20% this year, or increase your commitment to $1,000? And then an exit question is checking to see if there's anything missed. Please give us a sentence here of a suggested engagement activity that we can host for the summer for the board. So I always try to do one of 3: engagement, exploration, or exit. But some surveys are going to be all exploration, you know, but I try to do one of 3. Oh, that's a good one. How would you go about finding good board members? I would recommend highly, we talked about this when we started, right? That you ask the board to do this activity maybe once every couple of months. You know, list your associations, the people you're around regularly, 2 or 3 people. List 2 or 3 affiliations, who's in your circle of influence, and then who do you have a committed relationship, a connection to? And use this data to recruit board members. But this is where I would start. It's recommendations from the board. How do you define diversity and inclusion? Margarita asked a question about diversity. Elaborate a little bit, not sure what you mean.
Well, I think as I try to have a diverse board, to define, sometimes they think that they understand the mission and the vision, and sometimes board members have a totally different concept, and they come with different background. And we are focusing, maybe they have resources, access to money and places, but they are missing a lot of cultural part of, you know, the social aspect of what we need. So it's becoming very important for us to really have this deep conversation about BIPOC and what we serve and about our mission beyond the, you know, the mission is a short statement. So you need to go deep into, because I have experience having conflict later when how they define and what kind of programs. So I'm learning now that I need to have really deep conversation first, and as a, you know, development to redefine as the field is changing, everything is changing, like for Latinx and non-X and the gender, race, everything is changing now. It is important to have this deep conversation and how they understand that context related to our mission and the program that we do.
And what, you know, I appreciate that, Margarita. I will ask if you can provide that in your feedback. I am chairing a diversity, equity, and inclusion process for a large state agency right now. So I have a presentation that I can share. If you put that in the feedback form, maybe that's something we can circle back with in the winter, is a DEIJ workshop But quite simply, and I'm glad Margarita brought this up, diversity is about characteristics. So it's as many different characteristics as you can contain, whether it's age, gender, ethnicity, race, ability, career experience, education, training. One of the things an organization I'm affiliated with now has changed or augmented their hiring criteria. So you can have a degree or 5 years of direct experience, and they will pipeline you with Suffolk Community College to get a degree. Highly effective diversity tactic, because not everyone is going to have the ability to have a degree right now, which leads us to inclusion. So inclusion is about creating an environment where as many people as possible can feel comfortable and have access across the board to what we do. So how do we create an environment where folks can access our services and be affiliated with us? One of them might be changing how we hire. One of them might be our commitment to training and development and outreach. But inclusion is about allowing access across the board in a way that is unhampered, or providing equal access to opportunities, to resources, and to giving traditionally marginalized groups, particularly those based on gender, race, or disabilities, a means to feel equal in that space.
Yeah, and I would add some of the issues as if related to fundraising and grant writing, and or if you go to public funding. So all this question need to be explained in some way or the other, and it's where the conflict, as the board wanted to really go into programming and also steering, like being a panel reading grants. I think it's a big challenge to understanding, and is this conversation need to be open, and I think getting outside professional training. I totally agree with you to have this conversation, because how they define or how they wanted to impose programming and how this reflect into a grant. So you get all this gap and misunderstanding, and how their own community define themselves. In my case, how we define ourselves, like how board member wanted to define the necessary our own communities or programs. So I just share my experience. Is a very honest conversation that we having in this moment, and everything changing.
Yeah, I think it's important to know, most funding agencies, and Margarita alluded to this, most funding agencies now have a part of their scoring criteria, DEIJ, and equity and equality are not the same. And I had to take training to learn the difference, because I come from a particular era where most of the workplace activities were about equality. Equity is different. Equity is different than equality, and diversity meant something different. The inclusion wasn't even a part of my lexicon working in the workplace in the 90s. But now inclusion is actually a term of art, and I'm learning more and more, and I'm leading a process right now. So if you put that on the feedback form, perhaps we can do a DEIJ. I've been wanting to do a DEIJ workshop for nonprofits for a while. Because one of the key elements of board effectiveness is diversity, and not just for diversity's sake. We're talking about diversity for longevity, to actually be able to last past, a particular milestone of accomplishment. So we got to get young people. We have to get people of different ability levels. We have to make sure that we provide access, not on an ad hoc basis, but on a basis across the board. It has to be has to be factored in to everything that we do, which is new for me, because I'm a mobility elitist. That's what I was told. I'm a mobilityist is the term. This is somebody that sees their world as a able, mobile individual without much obstacle as everyone else. So a colleague of mine said, "Don't be a mobilist." I said, "Oh, what does that mean?" He said, "That means you see everything because you can get around. I can't get around." This person happens to have CP, but you wouldn't know. He had a lot of physical therapy. So sometimes he can walk well, sometimes he can't. So he doesn't always have a cane, he doesn't always have crutches, but I made a suggestion about an event. And he said, "Oh, you're being a mobilist. That wouldn't appeal to me." And I said, "Oh, okay." Our membership was adversely affected by the pandemic. What is an effective method of re-engaging membership? Having fun. 2 words, non-fundraising activities to have fun. Mini golf, wine tastings, game night. I just did a game night not even 3 weeks ago. We went out and it was old school, hopscotch, jacks, checkers, backgammon. We had a blast. And I said, oh, I'm coming back. If this is the type of stuff we're going to do, I'm coming back. It was right at the park. Bring your own chair. They bought all the tables and all the games they took out from the library. And people donated. We played checkers. We played what is it called? Connect Four. Not is it Connect Four with the Connect Four? We played Jenga. All this old school stuff. Have fun. You want to re-engage membership? Have fun. That is the way to re-engage people after this pandemic. You want to get on people's priority list? Have fun. Do a dance class. Line dancing is big. Ballroom, salsa, bachata. People love this stuff. Have fun. Do a trivia night. The list goes on and on. Anybody want to share questions they'd like to ask in their focus group? Any questions you'd like to ask in your focus group? I think we talked a little bit about it. I like the mission question. What do you see as our mission? And then a question, what do we do? That's real simple. What do you think we do? And you'd be surprised at what people say. You'd be surprised. How often should you have a board retreat? At least twice a year. Once is cutting it close. Board retreat should have a theme, if you can. You need a goal, some activities, and an outcome that you can assess. So strengthening connection, understanding, and planning for the future. I always like to do a pre-retreat activity, either online or in person, and then have activities in the retreat, and then a pre and a post survey. And then assess through survey, one retreat to the next. What would you like us to talk about next time? What are some of the things that we didn't touch this time that you would have liked to have discussed? How do we strengthen board structure? Margarita just touched on a big part of it, is I'm encouraging incorporating DEI-JA, diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and access into your work. Or unfortunately, in 5 years, you will not be in the same place you are now. You will probably be backwards. I would recommend that you create a DEI-JA plan. It could be very simple. It could be 1 page. It could be 1 page. What do we believe? How do we incorporate it? And how will we measure? Simple. What do we believe diversity, equity, and inclusion, and justice and access means to us? How are we going to incorporate it? And then how are we going to measure it? Very simple, but it's a start. Understanding more about what you do. Every board member has to have an understanding more about what we do and why we do it. What problem are we solving? What are we addressing? And we need opportunities to connect with each other when you're not asking for money. Fundraising is important, but not all the time. What's the perception about us in the outside world? And then we talked about DEI-JA. You put that on the feedback. I already have a presentation that I can tailor to the nonprofit industry. And I would really recommend, highly recommend that you, there's an organization, they have a racial equity tool. I can tell you the name right now. I just used it. The racial equity tool. It's a really, really good tool. I will find it because I just got an email from them. I signed up for their listserv.
Yeah, if you send it to me, Nicole, and I'll put it on that webpage.
Yes. I
I
will send it.
And I'll include it when I do a follow-up email to everybody. We do have another question in the chat. Our
Sure.
membership was adversely affected by the pandemic. What is an effective method of re-engaging membership?
Oh, yes, we talked about it. We said, have fun. Oh, yeah, racial equity, racial healing, the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. That was gonna bother me. I'll send you the link, but it's
Okay.
W.K. Kellogg. But yes, how do we engage membership? Have fun. That would be my first recommendation. Do something fun. And now I want you to just think about 2 goals for your board over the next year. And we're gonna do Q&A and talk about that over the next 5 to 6 minutes. But just take a moment and just write in the chat a goal for the board over the next year. I'll put again in the chat, some of you did, a lot of you did email me to be on my newsletter. You wanted to get the newsletter. Next month is DEIJ. I'm talking about diversity, equity, inclusion in the next article. You can email me. So anybody want to share a board goal with the group for the next year? To incorporate the survey and have one fun event. Yes, Lori, excellent goal. Thank you. Lori said her goal is to incorporate the results of a survey, do a survey, and then have one fun event. Survey Monkey is very intuitive, Lori. It is easy. It is free for a basic account. You can do a 10-question survey to 7 to, I think, 15 people. You can do less than 10. Do 5 questions. And the answers come back anonymous. You don't know who said what. And have one fun event. I hate to keep pushing mini golf, but it's easy. We had fun. Wine tasting, it was easy. We had fun. Salsa lesson. My salsa instructor came out. Most of you know I'm a ballroom dancer, almost 14 years. I've been dancing salsa for 10. My instructor, who I take private lessons from, came out. I paid her a little bit. She taught our board members. We had a blast. Now they're asking, can we have a board salsa class every month? I said, I think we can do, not every month. She teaches classes in Hard Park. You can go there. But they really had a great time. It was a lot of fun. So think about that. Susan said her goal is to find 2 new board members. Again, I'm going to share this with Elizabeth. And you can send this out, Susan, and anyone else that's interested, as a survey. You can say, can you list 3 people you're associated with, 3 people affiliated, 3 people that you would feel comfortable with us contacting? You know, you can even do that. You can do it in a board meeting. You can send it out early and ask them to bring it. That's an option. Or they can do it as a survey. But this is where you start your recruitment efforts. All right. This is where you start your recruitment. Oh, Susan says she wants a staff salsa event. Well, Patty's great. Patty is great. I've known her for almost 8 years. Patty and Miguel, they're wonderful. They teach right in Amityville and Hop Hog.
I don't know if my board is ready, but I'm ready.
And they come to you. You know, they come to you. They come to you. But it's fun. Yeah, it's fun. You could do Zumba, you could do ballroom, you could do, I did country line dancing. That was a lot. That was like out of my element. I was like, oh, achy breaky, like, okay, but I did it. I did it and it was fun. It was my suggestion because I had never done it before, but it was fun. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Roberta. Have a good afternoon. And think about having fun. I'm telling you, Susan, we're laughing with Susan, but she said, I'm ready. Listen, it's fun and it keeps you laughing and connected.
Thank you. Have a good week.
See you on the 12th. Bring your goal and action, you know, your goal for each one so that we can do the action plan. Everyone, please don't forget that. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a wonderful holiday. I'm here for a few moments if you need me.
Thank you, Nicole.